Manifesting a trip to Mexico. Yeah, that was fun. I was gonna say unexpected, but it wasn't because I made it happen. The trip was unexpected once I got there. Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of The Rising Tide with Barot, where I share my life experience, learnings, and tips with you so that you get to choose to learn from it, give it a try, or completely ignore it if it doesn't feel aligned. Rising tide, as a rising tide lifts all boat. And that's how I see the world. All of us are capable of raising each other up. Manifesting a trip to Mexico. It started a year before it happened. So the trip happened actually a little bit more than a year. The trip happened in October, November, and December 2022. And I started thinking about it in September 2021. I was talking with my friend who lives in Mexico City, and I hadn't seen her for 2 years then. And I wanted to go. It's been a while actually, so pre-COVID, and COVID happened, life changed, blah, blah, blah. But that September I had a full-time job, been in Hong Kong for a while, left a very long-term relationship, got my finances back on track, felt I was putting myself together again. So I felt good. And I was like, okay, I can go for a long-term goal. This is what I want to make happen. No clue how, but it was just like, in 1 year, I'll be in Mexico. That's an idea. In December of 2021, I printed out a yearly calendar. And I think it was from mid-September all the way to mid-November, I highlighted all the dates and I wrote Mexico. It was big. It was, as I walked into my front door, it was just on my right. I had a tiny little flat. It was really cute, but tiny little flat. It was just on my right. And it happened to also be in front of the bathroom. And because it was a tiny flat and I lived alone, I left the bathroom door always open. So every time I'd go pee, I'd see that, which was like, Mexico, yay! So I saw it on a day-to-day basis. And then I also asked my friend for a Mexican playlist on Spotify. This is a mindset thing that I use to shift my mindset subconsciously, to insert tiny little things around my environment that will remind me of what I'm aiming towards, so that subconsciously it's always at the surface. And Spotify is something that I use on the go. I pay for it, and yeah, so I downloaded the playlist and I asked for a Mexican song playlist, which I did. And it was something that every time I wanted to think about it, I would listen to that playlist. I also had my own Latin music playlist. It wasn't particularly Mexican based, but I listened to that as well. So there was a lot of Latin rhythm tunes played during that time. And I think it was after a conversation with her in January 2022 where, I don't know, I just started sketching. I don't sketch a lot. The drawing is in the show notes, so click on the link to the show notes to see it. But in January 2021, I think it's January, I drew a picture of her and I working on the computers together in a table in a setting in Mexico. And I wrote Mexico, I think it was September 2022 that I wrote on it. Yeah, and it was just us working together. It was a very far dream. I was still repaying a lot of my debts then, and I had that urge in front of me. It was also a need to escape Hong Kong because of what was going on with COVID, with the limitation and everything. And I was not in a good place in Hong Kong at that time. But I just needed to get out. And this picture was just a way out. And actually I looked at it a little while back. And it was just like, wow, just like, oh my gosh. And we have a moment of us together where we took the picture. It's not the same angle, but it's like us working together on a table in Mexico. And I'd forgotten about that picture until after I came back from Mexico. And I was like, oh my gosh, this happened. I was like, yes. But when I drew it, I had no clue. I had no clue whatsoever. So I was putting my finances together, and then it was budget thinking time. So that was end of January 2022. I was like, okay, how much money per month do I need to save for the amount? I was asking her also, what is the living expenses in Mexico? How much will I need to put aside for for activities? Did a bit of research. And also the timing. I was asking around what period to go to Mexico, and the thing that came, she was like, 2nd of November for the Day of the Dead. Dia de Muerto is a big thing in Mexico. And that was the timing that I had. And so between putting my budget in place, because I knew how much I needed to live over there for 2 months, and then the timing, and I was also, it was later, I think that was in February, March, I started watching Spanish speaking series in Spanish with Spanish subtitles again. It's something that I'd done in summer 2020, and every now and then there'd be like a series I'd watch in Spanish and do that. So I did that again. I had no clue how really I would make it happen. I just started taking action steps towards it. There were so many unanswered questions when I started taking these action in January and February, especially with the job, with how I was going to take leave with it. I had no clue, but I did not ask the questions. I just started taking steps towards what I wanted. Something that comes up over and over again in my mindset is I don't need how I'm going to make it happen. I just need to know that I'm going to make it happen, and something will come out along the way. And it has. When you start using that thinking to start with, and you haven't before, it's completely illogical, and you're like, how can you believe it? How can you believe something you haven't seen come true? Like most, I don't know if that's you, but most of the people in the whole wide world need to see it to believe it. But if you never see it, then you'll never believe it. And if you never believe it's true, you're never going to take actions towards what you want, which is ironic because you want to make it happen and you'd like to believe it, but you haven't seen the proof, right? And I've heard from the podcast, the reading, the coaches, just all the work that I've done on myself is you believe first and then it happens. It's not the way around. Believe, then it happens. So believing without seeing any proof is scary, but it's like a muscle. Believe small, it happens. Oh my gosh, it happens. Believe a little bigger, it happens. Oh great. Believe a little bigger, it happens. And then you go bigger and bigger and bigger. Now I've gotten to a stage in my life which I believe really big, and it happens really big. But I didn't start like this. But it's belief first. So again, didn't know how, but I didn't need to know how. I just knew that it was going to happen. If you're interested in working on your mindset and shifting massive blocks, seeing where you're limiting yourself, where the blocks are coming up, and taking forward on the action and the visions that you want to take, contact me and let's chat. Let's see if we can work one-on-one as coach, me as coach coaching you, and see if be a match. First you've got to feel that it's right. So of course, if you're hearing this right now and you're like, not for me, fine, that's great. I celebrate you for knowing that. If you feel that you're interested in working together and it's something you want to move forward, go ahead and click on the link in the show notes where you can see the offerings and get in touch with me and let's chat. Also, something that was happening in Hong Kong at the time is I was extremely dissatisfied with Hong Kong, COVID, because we were still right in the middle of it in spring 2022, and my job. There was a massive level of dissatisfaction, and my brain was like, how do I get out of Hong Kong? How do I get out of the job? It was coming, and also I've been in Hong Kong for a long time, so yeah. July 2022, my finances aligned due to multiple different things. Then I kept talking to my friend, and then that was a time where I spent a lot of time with my family. Yeah, and I didn't do much else. I rested, enjoyed, took a holiday, and just had family time, which was so needed. And then in September 2022, that's when I restarted taking action. So the budget was already there, the finances were put aside, and I started looking on a website called Workaway, which is where you can volunteer half part-time, like half the day, 5 days a week, and then you get accommodation that's free, and sometimes food as well with it. And I was looking there, and I found a place in Chiapas, San Cristobal de las Casas, where I ended up going for 5 weeks. That's why I was looking for 6 to 5 weeks. And so I found that just a little bit before I booked my flights to go to Mexico. And shortly afterwards I flew. It was like, that's about, yeah, I was like, there's more to it. No, there's not. I'm realizing there's a pattern. I've recorded a few of like how I've manifested things in my life, and there's a pattern that it takes about 6 months for something to realize, and it's always the same thing. There's a bar idea that's starting to simmer within me, that it's always there on the back of my mind. I'm not particularly putting front attention into it, there's other things, but it's there in the back of my mind, and it's like simmering and growing and like maturing slowly. And I take an action after another, small little things. I surround myself with reminders of where I'm gonna go, and I make it happen. Da, da, da. I'm in the process of something similar again right now, which I am so not ready to share. That will be for the end of the year, 2023. And yeah, but it's happened over and over again. To wrap up this episode, just to let you know, whatever you want right here in your heart and you want to make it happen and you're afraid of doing it, you seriously don't need to know the whole path to get there. You don't need a detailed plan to get there. You can have big bullet points if you want. If it's not exactly aligned, don't let that stop you. You most likely will encounter things along the journey that are completely unexpected, but also here in the most beautiful way. Like, you could have never expected, like, created that, but you're just like, wow, I can't believe this has happened because I've allowed it. I've allowed space to happen. So yeah, go after what you truly want and let yourself be. Just be you. That's incredible. It feels amazing too. It's so worth doing. And yeah, if this has resonated with you, just let me know. Send me a DM. You can find me on Instagram at Tara Barot, Tarabarot. I just love to hear like what you've taken away from this, what's inspired you, or what action you're going to be taking. Because you've had it on your mind and you want to go for it. Yeah. All right. And if you want to make sure you catch the episode that comes up next, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you next time on these episodes, either on podcast or YouTube. Bye.